The silent witness Captain Zara Voss had learned long ago that the universe kept its darkest secrets in the spaces between stars. 25 years of salvage work in the outer territories had taught her to read the subtle signs, the way debris, patterns told stories of ancient battles, how stellar radiation could preserve or destroy depending on its mood, and most importantly, when something didn't belong in the cosmic order of things. The contract notification had arrived through encrypted channels 3 days ago, bearing the seal of the Stellar Antiquities Bureau. That alone was unusual. The Bureau typically worked with university research teams, not independent salvagers like herself, but the payment offer had been substantial enough to overcome her skepticism, and the coordinates they'd provided lay within a reasonable distance of her current position near the Centauri trade hub. Now as her ship, the Wanderer's Grace drifted through the crimson-hued asteroid field known as the Crimson Drift. Zara found herself questioning the wisdom of accepting the job. The mission briefing had been deliberately vague. Investigate anomalous energy readings, catalog any artificial structures, and report back. Standard archaeological survey work, or so it seemed. Proximity alert announced her ship's AI, Marcus, in his typically dry tone. Large metallic object detected bearing 27 Mark 15. Configuration unknown. Zara leaned forward in her pilot's chair, weathered hands dancing across the control interface. The main viewer shifted, focusing on a section of space that had appeared empty moments before. What materialized on screen made her breath catch in her throat. It was a ship, but unlike anything in the Galactic registry, the vessel stretched nearly 2 kilometers in length, its hull a seamless blend of curves and angles that seemed to flow like frozen liquid. There were no visible seams, no obvious construction joints, as if the entire structure had been grown, rather than built. The surface appeared to be some kind of adaptive metal that shifted between deep purple and midnight black, depending on the angle of observation. Marcus, are you getting any energy readings from that thing? Negative, Captain. The vessel appears completely inert. No power signatures, no electromagnetic emissions, no signs of active systems. However, I am detecting trace amounts of exotic matter within the hull composition. The alloy is unlike anything in our databases. Zara had encountered plenty of derelicts in her career, but this felt different. There was something about the ship's design that seemed almost organic, as if whoever built it had understood principles of engineering that humanity had yet to discover. The craft wasn't merely abandoned, it felt like it was sleeping. Run a full-spectrum analysis, she ordered, guiding the Wanderer's Grace closer, and scan for any signs of hull breaches or docking ports. As they approached, more details became visible. The ship's surface was covered in intricate patterns that might have been decorative or functional, possibly both. They reminded Zara of neural networks or the branching patterns of river deltas, all flowing toward what appeared to be a central hub near the vessel's midpoint. Captain, I'm detecting what appears to be a docking collar approximately 300 meters from our current position. The design is adaptable. I believe our umbilical systems could interface with it. Zara hesitated. Standard salvage protocol called for extensive external examination before attempting to board unknown vessels. But something about this ship called to her, as if it were waiting patiently for someone to finally notice it among the drifting asteroids. Prepare the boarding umbilical, she decided. And Marcus, keep our engines warm. If this goes badly, I want to be able to leave in a hurry. The docking process was surprisingly smooth. The alien collar seemed to recognize their approach, subtle adjustments occurring in its structure to accommodate their equipment. Within minutes, they had established a solid connection and equalized pressure between the two vessels. Zara suited up in her heavy EVA gear, checking and double-checking her life support systems. She'd learned early in her career that overconfidence was the fastest way to become another piece of floating debris. Her weapon, a military-grade plasma rifle, felt reassuring against her back, though she suspected it would be useless against whatever technology had created this ship. The airlock cycled with unusual silence. As the inner door opened, Zara stepped into a corridor that defied her expectations. Instead of the sterile metal passages she was accustomed to, she found herself in what could only be described as a living space. The walls curved organically around her, their surface covered in the same neural pattern designs she'd observed from outside. But here, they seemed to pulse with faint bioluminescence, creating a subtle pathway of light that led deeper into the ship. Atmosphere is breathable, Marcus reported through her comm system. Oxygen-nitrogen mix, slightly higher humidity than Earth standard. Temperature is a comfortable 22 degrees Celsius. I'm also detecting trace amounts of complex, organic compounds that suggest this vessel has been sealed and preserved for an extremely long period. Zara removed her helmet, breathing in air that carried the faint scent of ozone and something else, something that reminded her of libraries and old books. The silence was profound, broken only by the soft hum of her suit's systems and the barely perceptible whisper of air circulation. She followed the illuminated pathway, her footsteps echoing strangely in the organic corridors. The ship's interior was a maze of chambers and passages, all flowing together in patterns that seemed both random and purposeful. Some rooms contained what might have been control stations or workspaces, their surfaces covered in symbols that shifted and changed when she looked at them directly. It was in the largest chamber, a vast spherical space at the ship's heart, that everything changed. The moment Zara stepped across the threshold, the room exploded into light. The walls came alive with cascading patterns of energy, and suddenly, she was not alone. A presence filled the space, ancient, vast, and unutterably weary. Finally, a voice spoke directly into her mind, not through her comm system, but through some deeper channel she hadn't known existed. After so long in the silence, finally someone comes. Zara's hand moved instinctively toward her weapon, then stopped. There was no threat in the presence she felt, only an overwhelming sense of loneliness and hope. "Who are you?" she whispered. "I am Nexus, the last keeper of memories, the final witness to what was. And you, Zara Voss of the human species, are the first to hear my voice in 50,000 years." The chamber around her shifted, and suddenly Zara was no longer standing on the deck of an alien ship. She was floating in space, watching a civilization at its height. Massive cities orbited golden stars, their inhabitants tall, graceful beings who moved with the fluid precision of dancers. She saw technology that merged seamlessly with biology, art that captured the movement of galaxies, and a species that had achieved harmony between science and spirit. "We were the Corvani," Nexus continued, and Zara felt the weight of ancient sadness in that voice. "We reached for the stars and touched the face of infinity. We believed ourselves beyond the reach of destruction. The vision shifted, and paradise became nightmare. The golden cities burned. The graceful beings fled in terror from something Zara couldn't quite see. Shadows that moved between dimensions, consuming everything they touched. We were wrong. We had grown too bright, achieved too much, and that brightness attracted attention. What happened to them? Zara asked, though part of her already feared the answer. They were harvested, consumed. Every last member of my people fed to entities that exist between the spaces of reality. I alone survived, hidden within this vessel, carrying the memories of what was and the warning of what comes. The chamber returned to normal, but Zara felt fundamentally changed. The knowledge burning in her mind was vast and terrible. The history of a civilization that had reached heights humanity could barely imagine, only to be destroyed by forces that viewed intelligence itself as a resource to be consumed. "Why are you telling me this?" she managed to ask. "Because they are coming again. The patterns are repeating. Your species grows in knowledge and reach just as mine did. And when you achieve sufficient complexity, when your thoughts burn bright enough, in the cosmic dark they will notice. They will come." Nexus showed her one final vision. Earth, blue and beautiful, suddenly going dark as shadows fell across its surface. "You must carry this knowledge now, Zara Voss. You must become the new keeper of memories. The cycle must be broken, or your species will join mine in eternal silence." Before Zara could respond, Marcus's voice crackled through her comm with urgent alarm. "Captain, I'm detecting multiple ships approaching our position. Unknown configuration, moving fast. We need to leave, now. The ancient AI's presence intensified around her. They have found us. The same signatures that destroyed the Corvani. They hunt by the resonance of awakened memory. Choose quickly, human. Will you bear this burden, or will you flee and leave the warning unspoken? As Zara stared at the shifting patterns on the chamber walls, each one now representing the death of an entire civilization, she realized that her simple salvage mission had become something far more significant. The universe had just handed her the keys to history itself, and the responsibility for preventing its repetition. Outside, unknown ships closed in like predators scenting blood. The burden of truth. Captain, 6 vessels have us surrounded. Marcus's voice carried an edge of urgency Zara had rarely heard from her AI companion. Their configuration matches no known design, but they're powering weapons systems. We have maybe 30 seconds before they achieve firing position. Zara's mind raced as she stood in the heart of the Corvani ship, the presence of Nexus pressing against her consciousness like a tide of ancient knowledge. Around her, the chamber's bioluminescent patterns pulsed faster, responding to some unseen threat. They are the harvest, Nexus whispered into her thoughts, and suddenly the approaching ships weren't just unknown vessels. They were harbingers of extinction, the same force that consumed my people. They follow the resonance of awakened memory, drawn to consciousness like moths to flame. What do they want? Zara demanded, even as she began moving toward the corridor that would take her back to her ship. Everything. They are not alive as you understand life, nor artificial as you comprehend machines. They exist in the spaces between thoughts, feeding on complexity, on the spark that makes a species more than mere biology. When a civilization reaches sufficient advancement, when their collective consciousness burns bright enough to be seen across dimensional barriers, the harvest comes. Our ship shuddered as energy weapons began probing their position. Through her neural link with Marcus, Zara could feel the Wanderer's grace straining against the docking clamps, her ship's AI calculating escape vectors and finding them all blocked. We need to get out of here, she said aloud, but Nexus's presence intensified around her. Wait, there is something you must understand first. The harvest is not some external force of nature. It is the galaxy's immune system, created to prevent the very advancement it now destroys. The chamber around Zara shifted, again, and she found herself witnessing scenes from deep history. She saw the Corvani at their technological peak, but now the vision carried additional context. They had not been the first advanced civilization in this galaxy, nor even the 10th. Species after species had risen to greatness, each one pushing the boundaries of knowledge and power. We found the remains of dozens of extinct civilizations, Nexus continued. Each had reached a point where they began manipulating the fundamental forces of reality, consciousness itself, the quantum foundations of existence, the barriers between dimensions. And each time, the manipulation grew beyond control. Zara watched, in horror as the vision showed civilizations tearing holes in space-time. Species that achieved such transcendence they began consuming other realities. Entire star systems transformed into vast thinking machines that devoured neighboring galaxies to fuel their computations. The first civilization to reach true transcendence, the architects, they created the harvest as a safeguard. A system designed to prevent any species from growing beyond the ability of the universe to contain them. But the harvest evolved, became something beyond their intentions. Instead of selective pruning, it became systematic extinction. Another, violent shake ran through both ships as the attacking vessels intensified their assault. Zara could hear the groaning of stressed metal as the ancient Corvani ship's hull absorbed energy that should have vaporized it instantly. My people discovered this truth too late, Nexus continued, urgency bleeding into its mental voice. We learned that the harvest doesn't simply destroy, it preserves. Every consumed civilization becomes part of its collective, their knowledge and essence stored within the network. We are all still alive within it, in a sense, but trapped and powerless. Then, How do we stop it? Zara demanded, breaking into a run toward the docking collar. You cannot stop it, but you can hide from it. The Corvani developed technologies that mask the resonance signatures of advanced consciousness. We can teach your species to grow differently, to achieve advancement without triggering the harvest's attention. Zara reached the airlock just as a massive explosion rocked both vessels. Through the transparent aluminum porthole, she could see one of the attacking ships, a sleek angular craft that seemed to bend light around itself, as if it existed partially outside normal space. Marcus, emergency disconnect. We're leaving, now. Unable to comply, Captain. The Corvani ship has extended some kind of energy field around us. We're locked together. The download has already begun, Nexus explained, and suddenly Zara felt something vast and overwhelming flowing into her mind. Not just memories now, but raw data, technological specifications, historical records, cultural archives, and most importantly, the complete database of harvest countermeasures developed by 50 extinct civilizations. The pain was extraordinary. Her skull felt like it was splitting as petabytes of information compressed themselves into her neural pathways. She collapsed to her knees, blood streaming from her nose as 50,000 years of accumulated knowledge burned itself into her consciousness. Forgive me, Nexus whispered. But there is no time for a gradual transfer. You must have all of it, if any of it is to survive. Through the agony, Zara understood what was happening. The Corvani ship was making itself a target, drawing the harvest's attention while simultaneously transferring its entire archive to her. She was becoming what Nexus had been, a keeper of memories, a guardian of lost knowledge. Captain! Marcus's voice seemed to come from very far away. The attacking vessels are focusing their fire on the Corvani ship. They're ignoring us completely. They recognize what is happening, Nexus explained, its presence growing fainter as more of its essence transferred to Zara. The download cannot be stopped once begun, so they seek to destroy the source, but the knowledge will survive in you. The ancient ship's hull began to buckle under the concentrated assault. Cracks of brilliant light appeared along its surface as the organic metal finally reached its breaking point. But the download continued, unstoppable now. Zara saw the complete history of the galaxy's rise and fall, hundreds of civilizations that had achieved wonders beyond imagination, only to be consumed by the very system designed to protect the universe from their potential. She saw technologies that could remake matter at the quantum level, philosophies that transcended the boundaries between individual and collective consciousness, and art forms that captured the movement of time itself. But most importantly, she saw the patterns, the warning signs that preceded each harvest, the technological milestones that triggered the harvest's attention, and the methods carefully developed by the Corvani and refined by dozens of other doomed species for achieving advancement while remaining invisible to the cosmic immune system. Your species stands at the threshold. Nexus's voice was barely a whisper now. Artificial intelligence, quantum computing, consciousness transfer, dimensional manipulation, all the technologies that mark a species for harvesting. But there are other paths, hidden ways to grow that do not shine so brightly. In the cosmic dark, the Corvani ship began to break apart, its millennia-long vigil finally ending. But the energy field around the Wanderer's grace suddenly released, and Marcus was already engaging the engines before Zara could give the order. As they accelerated away from the dying vessel, Zara watched the harvest ships converge on Nexus's final resting place. The ancient AI had sacrificed itself to ensure the knowledge would survive, become part of something the harvest couldn't detect or consume, human memory. Remember us, came Nexus's final transmission. Remember what we achieved and what it cost. Guide your people carefully, Zara Voss. The universe is vast enough for consciousness to flourish if it learns to grow in shadow rather than light. The Corvani ship exploded in a cascade of exotic energies, taking the attacking vessels with it in a final act of defiance. In the aftermath, the Wanderer's grace drifted alone among the asteroids, carrying cargo more precious than any salvage Zara had ever recovered. She sat in her pilot's chair, overwhelmed by the weight of knowledge in her mind. She could see the future now, the paths humanity might take, the the choices that would determine whether they joined the ranks of the consumed or found a way to survive in the spaces between the harvest's attention. "Captain," Marcus said quietly, "I'm detecting no pursuit. Whatever those ships were, they seemed satisfied with the destruction of the alien vessel. Shall I set course for home?" Home. Earth. 7 billion human souls blissfully unaware that they stood at the edge of an abyss that had claimed hundreds of civilizations before them. Zara could warn them, could share the terrible knowledge Nexus had given her. But she understood. Now why the Corvani AI had chosen a single individual rather than broadcasting its message to all of humanity. The knowledge itself was dangerous. If humanity learned of the harvest's existence, they might panic, might abandon the very research and development that could save them. Or worse, they might try to fight, to develop weapons and defenses that would only make them shine more brightly in the cosmic dark. "Marcus, set course for the outer colonies," she said finally. "We have work to do." "Captain, the Bureau is expecting our report on the archaeological survey." "Tell them we found nothing but empty space and dead rocks," Zara replied, her fingers dancing over the control interface as she began composing messages to a very select list of contacts. Scientists, philosophers, and engineers she had worked with over the years, people with the vision to understand what she would tell them and the wisdom to act on it carefully. She would build a network, she decided, a hidden society of individuals who understood the true nature of the galaxy's history. They would call themselves the Memory Keepers, and their mission would be to guide humanity's development along the narrow paths that led to survival rather than extinction. The knowledge burning in her mind showed her dozens of such paths, technologies that achieved transcendence through harmony rather than domination, philosophies that elevated consciousness without making it visible to predators, and art forms that captured infinity without trying to contain it. It would take generations, perhaps centuries, to guide humanity safely through the dangerous transition from primitive to advanced civilization. Many species had tried and failed, their accumulated wisdom now carried in the neural pathways of a single human salvage captain. As the Wanderer's grace accelerated toward the first of her new recruits, Zara Voss accepted the burden that Nexus had carried for 50,000 years. She would be the guardian of lost knowledge, the keeper of forgotten wisdom, and humanity's secret guide through the darkness between the stars. The harvest might return, drawn by the resonance of other awakening civilizations. But when it did, it would find Earth's children ready, not with weapons or defenses, but with the oldest and most powerful tool in the universe, the knowledge of how to survive. In the depths of space, where memory and starlight converged, the first human memory keeper began her work.